So we want to make sure that we're holding the leash in a safe way that will give you a good grip on the leash and that also won't accidentally cause injury if the dog were to pull forward. It also makes good leash handling techniques will make it easier to hold on to a larger, stronger dog that may be pulling. It doesn't necessarily stop the dog from pulling, but you have a better grip on the leash, so the dog's not likely to get away from you, which is always important. One thing you don't want to do is to have the leash wrapped around your hand like this. It doesn't give you good control over how much slack you have on the leash or how much tighter the leash is. If the dog were to lunge forward, you would be pulling your hand. You can't safely drop the leash. So it's not recommended to hold a leash like that. You also don't want to hold the leash so that it's coming out the top of your hand like this, because again, if the dog were to pull, it's straining on your wrist in such a way that you could end up with an injury. So there's a couple different ways to kind of more correctly hold a leash. There's some basic principles that you want to look at. So that is if you're holding the leash so that the end of it is coming at the bottom of your hand, if the dog were to pull, you have a much better grip on it and you're not as likely to have an injury to your wrist if they're pulling. Also, if you have the leash folded up in your hand, like an accordion, so it's very easy to hold on to a lot of leash. And again, it's coming out like this. So if a dog were to start pulling, you just have a better grip on it. It doesn't really matter how you hold the loop. I just don't recommend holding it, again, very loosely with your hand, because it would just be easy for a dog to tug and get away from you. So usually I have my leash one way or another folded up in my hand with the bottom coming out the bottom of my hand. You also want to pay attention to where your hands are in relation to your center of gravity. So if you're holding a leash like this, dog's walking in front of you, the leash is out here, you're not really paying attention. Again, if the dog moves forward because he's pulling off my center of gravity, it would be very easy for me to lose my balance. If I have the leash in my hand close to my center of gravity, close to my core, then if they're pulling, I have a better leverage to not then go with them. Use multiple points of contact when you're walking a dog, especially if I have to navigate it kind of closely through tight quarters. So I will be holding the leash with one hand and then having another point of contact with my other hand. Again, so my hands are very close to my body. I'm not kind of moving them all around. It's easier to give the dog information on where it should be in relationship to you if you're just changing the length of the leash that it's allowed to have, as opposed to if you're dragging around and pulling it in different directions. So again, the important things to keep in mind with how you're holding a leash is try to keep your hands close to your center of gravity. Try to have the leash folded over or an accordion so that you have a little bit better hold on it, better grip on it, and make sure that the leash is coming out at the bottom, not the top of your